The alphabet people. Seems like an ominous term, but everyone seems to be using it. It's quite a funny term. Just to call people the alphabet people makes them sound like some sort of weird cult. But they're not. It's just the LGBTQ plus, whatever the acronym, whatever the name is these days. And there seems to be a case that they are sort of losing in this battle. And this battle seems to be that people are testing them. They're being tested because, unfortunately, there does seem to be a situation where they're just incredibly oversensitive and kind of authoritarian, and people are challenging them on that because the fact is they won already. They did win, homosexual, gay rights, gay marriage. It's mainstream. Homosexuality is mainstream these days, and transsexuality, transgenderism is mainstream. This is all mainstream. So they have essentially won. They won the war. They won the war, but they want more and more and more. And the fact is, when you're in the mainstream and it is a mainstream thing, it can be criticised. It's no longer punching down because they have a certain degree of authority and power, a lot of power, a hell of a lot of power, and therefore power must be challenged. And every time it's been challenged, they're slowly revealing themselves to be. I'm not talking about everybody, but I'm talking about the most vocal, the authoritative types, sort of revealing themselves to be, what's the word? Intolerant people when it comes to criticism. Because anything should be criticised. That's the whole point of criticism. You're not bulletproof from criticism just because of certain things. Everything can be criticised and should be. And recently you've seen a lot of testing going on. One example, the most high profile at the moment, is obviously the Dave Chappelle special, which has completely divided everyone. Because he's, he doubled down on it after being, people having a go at him. He went all out and said, no, I'm going to still make jokes, because you get too pent up about it. And that's the thing, if you lose your shit every time someone makes a joke or says something about them, it kind of reveals a lot about your character, and it shows you to be someone that people don't want to associate with at the end of the day. No one likes someone who takes themselves too seriously. Now, there are obviously obvious reasons why, they get upset about stuff, because of the history and the fight for equal rights and so forth, and the persecutions, and obviously there's still communities where it's very much frowned upon. But in the mainstream society, it's subcultures and different cultures and so forth. They'll still have their iffy opinions and views on certain people, from mental health issues to same-sex relationships to the rights of women and all kinds of things. But in the mainstream culture, especially in the Western world, predominantly, it's tolerated and accepted. So it's kind of those subcultures you should be sort of challenging rather than the mainstream. The mainstream accepts you, and therefore you can be joked about. I do kind of think there was it's kind of funny with the Dave Chappelle situation, because when he did the SNL presenting thing after Trump won the election, he said an extremely reasonable thing of we'll give you a chance. We're just going to give you a chance. Give us a chance. We'll give you a chance. And there was huge backlash over him saying that. And then when he did his fourth special for Netflix, he went in on Trump. And therefore, he kind of redeemed himself in the eyes of, the left, I suppose. But now, that wasn't good enough. Maybe he should have thrown in a few Trump jokes. Because he threw in, went after white people, went after black people. you know. And they said, oh, it's the same. They were saying it's the same old. But he made some very valid points, especially talking about why he can say the M-bomb with impunity, but cannot say the F-bomb. And then, you know, someone says to him, well, that's because you're not gay. And he says, yeah, but I'm not an M-bomb either. And I thought that was very, you know, and I was like, oh, it was a great moment. I think you don't see the genius in that. And what are you doing? So we had that. We also had people going at it way harder, like a Generation Z. You had Soph, who had a channel completely terminated. Now, I don't know if you've seen the video, but it just goes in. It's very much satirical, but it's saying a lot of truths in there as well. It's very interesting. It was a very interesting piece, and I was like, whoa. I was like, yeah, she's going to struggle to come back from this one, as in on YouTube. And obviously they terminated her channel, even to an extent where I think they wanted to sort of make sure that people realised it was satirical, because she broke character at one point and started laughing, often like what Filthy Frank used to do in his videos. He'd often break character, similar sort of thing. She was like, and then they cut away from it, like, but that wasn't good enough. So she was testing it. She was testing them, saying, let's see how far we can go with satire. And you can't go far with it, apparently. If it, you know, I did a whole comedy video called Top 10 Times White Girls Ruined Everything, because I knew if it was just white men, it would be completely accepted and wouldn't be as funny. But white girls, it's okay, but it is girls. So I was just going over the line a bit too much, a little bit, because it was women I was attacking, you know. That was the whole joke of it. You know, I ain't high profile enough to get taken down. So just seeing, you know, what you can get away with. And that's kind of exposed it to being right, so they can't deal with satire. And then you've got the whole protest going on in Birmingham, where, you know, it's the main problem is with the, you know, having kids taught about sexuality is what they have a problem with. Because and there's a very good interview with the guy sort of heading up the campaign, the protests, and Sargon of Akkad, where he just explains, you know, we don't really talk about sexuality in any sense, heterosexuality or homosexuality, and therefore they're too young, because it is a sexuality thing. And that's kind of their main point, and they're fighting back against it as well, because there's this whole push of it's just going too much. There's too much of a push, and then when you criticize them or question them and the community, there's kickback, and they just go all out, lose their shit, and become very authoritative, and therefore they're losing, in the sense they're losing the public, you know, and they're losing a whole next generation, Generation Z, I think, with just the way that they're behaving towards criticism and questions. And therefore they're kind of doing a lot of damage to their cause, because like I said, they kind of won already. So once you've won, like, you know, enjoy, you know, it's peacetime, baby. Why aren't you enjoying peacetime? But no, they just want the war to continue. It's never enough. The whole give an inch, they'll take a mile thing is definitely in full effect. I mean, the reason I use this photo here is because this is just, you know, what is this? Do you know what I'm saying? You got to look at this and go, come on, what is this, man? You know, it's a bit much, isn't it? It's a bit much. You know, it's a little bit much about tolerance and acceptance. It's like, you know, it's the force feeding, I think, that people are having a problem with. You know, me, take it or leave it at some points, but I'm just seeing it from all sides, but I'm telling you, looking at it objectively, it's like they're not doing themselves any favors, and it's and there's huge and you can see it. It's in the wind, man. It's really going against them. You know, they're doing themselves a lot of damage. Their cause, people's acceptance, it's having an adverse effect, and you can see ripples of it. And every time they're being tested, they're revealing themselves. And also about everybody, but I'm talking about, like I said, the vocal core collectives, you know, the organizations, the ones with power, and people are testing them and seeing how they use that power, and in often case abuse that power. And and you're being tested, and you're losing the test. You're not passing the test. Do you see what I'm saying? And therefore, you don't want things to suddenly swing the other way. You were here, everything's fine, cool, and then you're just going over here, going, no, more. And the kickback will be, because that's like the whole kickback with political correctness. You had the noughties, which went to many depths of vulgarity and politically incorrect stuff and gross out comedy and just pushing it a bit too far at times. And I think around the turn of this decade, the tens, is that what we call them now? The tens and the teens? The 2010s, the pendulum started going that way, and it went way too far that way. So now what you're going to see is it's going to swing back again at some point. But how hard do you want it to swing? Because you don't want it to go crazy. So you want to have a word with yourself and think about things and think about it from a bigger perspective and think, yeah, maybe I am taking myself a little bit too seriously, because you don't want to be the person that everyone thinks is too sensitive. And we're living in very oversensitive times, and you don't want to be that group that's associated with being oversensitive, because it's going to be open season for you, and you might see a rollback of rights and everything that you fought so hard to have. We have 50 years. We recently celebrated, not too long ago, 50 years of the legalization of homosexuality. That's a fucking win. 50 years. You don't want to shit all over that. I think is the main thing. Never ask for too much. I think that's a lesson learned. It's like, don't get greedy with it, and don't take yourself too seriously, man. And then, and enjoy the win. And because there's other little battles that you haven't won. Is focus on the little battles. That's important. Not all the nonsense. I think that's the thing. So, this is a sign. It's a sign of what's to come. So you need to be very wary of how you proceed.